They left the courtroom like they'd won an easy chess match. "Tell the truth," my father urged, while my stepmother held his hand, her smile sharp. On the stone steps of the Monarch Street courthouse, she leaned in, her voice metallic. "Tell the truth, girl. Say you lied." Then the strike came, fast as a gavel. The crowd gasped. The security cameras kept rolling. As blood bloomed on my lip, I understood. The prelude was over. The rest was mine. My name is Rhea Quinn. I am 32 years old, and I am standing in a sliver of cold Holloway City sunlight that feels as thin and sharp as aluminum foil. It's Monday morning. The air smells like damp pavement and diesel exhaust from the idling buses on Monarch Street. The granite of the courthouse steps is frigid, leaching the minimal warmth from the soles of my wool-lined boots, grounding me in the reality of what just happened. We are exiting the Honorable Judge Thorne's courtroom, Chamber 3B. The air inside had been stale, smelling of old paper, floor wax, and the faint, bitter scent of cheap coffee from the stenographer's corner. The hearing regarding my grandmother's will, or rather, the challenge to it, was mercifully brief, procedural, a setting of dates, no drama yet, just the tightening of screws, the formalizing of the battlefield. I had sat perfectly still, my gaze fixed on the court's wooden seal, feeling the weight of my family sitting 2 rows behind me, their presence a palpable pressure on my back. Now, the heavy oak doors swing shut behind us, the thud echoing the finality of the morning's adjournment, the transition from the muffled silence of the court to the sudden, sharp noise of the street is jarring. Horns blare. A siren wails somewhere toward Braxton Ridge. And the press, they are here, not a swarm, not yet. My grandmother wasn't a celebrity, but Ardenvolt Systems is a local pillar, and a family dispute involving its interim CEO is blood in the water. They are waiting. A small cluster of microphones and smartphones at the bottom of the wide steps. They emerge beside me, a practiced tableau of sober family unity. My father, Graham Quinn, adjusts the knot of his conservative blue tie. He looks weathered, softer than I remember him, his face etched with a permanent, managed concern. He spots the cameras, a local news affiliate, and 2 digital reporters I don't recognize, their phones held up like weapons. He immediately assumes the mask of pained integrity. "Tell the truth," he murmurs, loud enough for the nearest microphone to catch. It's his favorite incantation, the Quinn family's unofficial motto, the one he used to deploy at the dinner table when my grades slipped or I stayed out too late. He directs it at me, but it's meant for the audience. It's a performance of gentle, paternal urging. "See? I am the reasonable one. I just want transparency from my difficult daughter." Beside him, clinging to his arm, is Lydia Morrow, my stepmother, the interim CEO of Ardenvolt Systems. Lydia does not look pained. She looks bored, which is somehow more insulting. She is flawless, encased in a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than my first car, a shield of expensive wool against the morning chill. Her smile is a thin, tight line, lipstick the color of a fresh wound. She doesn't look at the reporters. She looks at me. Her fingernails, gripping my father's sleeve, are lacquered in a deep, glossy red, sharp as shards of glass. They look like a signature, a warning. I say nothing. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Alani, had been explicit. "You do not speak to them. Rhea, you do not speak to anyone. The complaint is sealed for a reason. Let them posture. You stay silent. Your silence is a box. Don't show them what's inside." So I keep my mouth shut. I taste the waxy residue of the lip balm I applied 3 hours ago. I focus on descending the steps. One, then the next. The granite is uneven here, worn down by a century of other people's victories and defeats. I keep my chin level. Silence is its own statement. It's a vacuum, and I know Lydia, of all people, despises a vacuum. The steps are more crowded than I anticipated. Not just reporters, but courthouse loiterers, lawyers on smoke breaks, people waiting for their own appointments with fate. The air is thick with peripheral noise, the collective hum of public judgment. I catch a fragment of a whisper from a woman holding a manila envelope, her eyes darting between me and Lydia. That's the one, the stepdaughter. Heard she's suing for shares? Greedy. The words sting, precisely as intended. They paint me as greedy, opportunistic, a disgruntled child throwing a tantrum over an inheritance. It's the narrative Lydia's PR team has been carefully seeding for weeks. It's simple, it's ugly, and it's easy to believe. It's also a lie. The will is just the theater. The real fight isn't about my grandmother's estate. It's about my name on a patent Lydia buried. A patent she stole. Maybe she hears the whisper too. Maybe my silence is too loud. Maybe the sight of me, calm and unbroken, is the one variable she hadn't calculated. We are halfway down the wide staircase. My father is half a step ahead, already preparing his no-comment face for the cameras waiting at the curb. Lydia stops. The sudden halt is so abrupt I almost stumble. Her movement is reptilian fast. She releases my father's arm and her hand snakes out, grabbing my wrist. Those red nails dig into the soft skin above my watch. The grip is iron. "You liar!" she hisses. The words are for me alone, ejected with pressurized venom. Her face is inches from mine. I can smell her perfume, something expensive and cold, like jasmine refrigerated. I see the tiny stress fractures in her foundation, the tightening of the muscles around her jaw. She is vibrating with a rage she has held in check all morning. And then she swings. It's not a frenzied attack. It's not a desperate slap. It's a calculated, open-handed strike. A machine-stamp slap, as my mind instantly translates. A gesture of punctuation. The sound is shockingly loud in the open air. A sharp, wet crack that slices through the traffic noise. My head snaps to the side. The pain is instant, a blooming electric heat that engulfs the entire left side of my face. My eyes water immediately. A purely physiological betrayal. I taste copper. My tooth has cut the inside of my lip. The world pauses for one, stretched out second. The ambient hum of the street vanishes, replaced by a collective, sharp intake of breath from the 20 or 30 people on the steps. A complete, stunned silence. A pigeon takes flight from a nearby ledge, its wings clapping frantically. Someone drops a phone. I hear it clatter on the stone. "Oh my God," a woman whispers. I see the security guard near the main doors. A big man in a navy blue blazer. Jolt. His hand moves toward his belt, then stops. He doesn't move toward us. Instead, his eyes, wide with disbelief, flick upward. He looks directly at the black security camera dome mounted on the granite facade above the entrance. His gaze lingers there for a solid 3 seconds. He sees it. He knows it's recorded. The shockwave recedes, and the adrenaline kicks in. It doesn't make me shake. It makes me preternaturally calm. The world sharpens. I can feel the exact spot on my lower lip where my tooth cut the inside. The skin on my cheek throbs, a pulsing beat in time with my heart. Slowly, deliberately, I turn my head back to face her. Lydia is still breathing hard, her nostrils flared. Her mask of corporate composure is gone, replaced by a flash of pure, triumphant rage. She believes she has won. She believes she has broken me, proven her point, reduced me to a hysterical, greedy child in front of the world. I reach into the pocket of my coat. My fingers find the small packet of tissues I always carry. I pull one out, a single, folded white square. I lift it to my mouth. I don't dab. I press it firmly against my lip, then pull it away. The white paper is stained with a bright, shocking smear of red. My blood. I hold the tissue for a moment, letting the nearest reporters see it. I look past Lydia's shoulder, past the stunned face of my father, and up at the black dome camera the guard had clocked. "Thank you, camera," I say. My voice is quiet, but clear. The spell is broken. The reporters surge, shouting questions. "Lydia, did you hit her?" "Mrs. Morrow, what just happened?" "Mr. Quinn, what's your comment?" Ria, are you pressing charges? My father finally reacts. He seems to snap out of a daze. He looks at Lydia, then at my face, then at the blood on the tissue. His expression isn't anger. It's not defense. It's a deep, profound confusion, as if he's walked into the wrong room and doesn't understand the language. Lydia, he says, his voice a strained whisper. He puts his hand on her arm, the one she struck me with, and gives a gentle, reflexive tug. Lydia, what? We're in public. The cameras. What are you doing? He is scanning the crowd, his eyes wide, looking for an exit, a way to rewind the last 30 seconds. He is looking for a way to make this not have happened. Lydia recoils from his touch, her face hardening back into its impassive mask. She realizes what she has done, not the violence, the tactical error. I feel the urge, the primal fire in my veins, to hit her back, to wipe that look of calculated control off her face, to match her animalistic outburst with my own. But I don't. Revenge is not a fistfight on a courthouse staircase. Revenge is a balance sheet. It's a chain of custody. It's an encrypted file delivered to a board of directors at precisely the right moment. Lydia's violence is a mistake. My restraint is a weapon. I drop the bloody tissue onto the granite step, a small white flag stained with red. I look directly past the shouting local reporters, ignoring their questions. I find the lens of the nearest professional news camera, the big one with the Channel 4 logo. I stare right down the barrel, right into the homes of whoever will be watching the 6 o'clock news. They will see the red mark blooming on my cheek. They will see the blood on my lip. I don't look sad. I don't look broken. I smile, a small, tight, precise smile that doesn't reach my eyes. The prelude is over. The rest is mine. I turn and walk down the remaining steps alone, leaving them to the chaos they created. The cold Halloway air hits the raw skin of my face, and for the first time all day, it feels good. It feels like a beginning. The drive away from Monarch Street is a blur of gray buildings and traffic lights that seem to stay red for an eternity. My cheek throbs with a dull, insistent rhythm. I don't go home. I drive to a small, anonymous coffee shop on the other side of town, a place with weak Wi-Fi and watery espresso, where no one knows the name Quinn. Sitting in a worn booth, I stir a plastic stick through a paper cup of black coffee and let the memories come. They are the foundation of this war, the bedrock beneath the courthouse steps. To the outside world, the Quinns are a Halloway City success story. We are a feature in the glossy pages of Braxton Ridge Living. The headline from last year's profile is seared into my memory. The Quinn ethos, resilience, innovation, and family first. The article featured a professionally shot photograph of us in the sprawling living room of my father's house, the house I grew up in. Graham Quinn, the grieving engineering genius who turned his late wife's legacy, Ardenvolt Systems, into a regional powerhouse. Lydia Morrow Quinn, the sharp, beautiful second wife who stepped in, not just as a partner, but as a savvy business leader, guiding the company after loss. And me, Ria Quinn, the quiet, dutiful daughter, a testament to the family's resilience, the reasonable one, in the photo. I am wearing a cream-colored sweater and a practiced, placid smile. I am positioned slightly behind my father, a supportive, non-threatening accessory. The lighting is soft, the copy is glowing, and every word of it is a carefully constructed lie. The truth is, our family runs on a different ethos. Tell the truth is the company slogan, the family prayer. But it comes with a silent, all-important asterisk. Tell the truth, but only the parts that make us look good. Lydia arrived 3 years after my mother's death from a sudden aneurysm. Mom had been the heart of Ardenvolt, the brilliant chemical engineer who developed the company's foundational battery technology. The house, after she was gone, felt cavernous and silent, filled only with the scent of her favorite freesia-scented candles, which I kept burning like a memorial. Then Lydia came. She didn't just marry my father, she performed a corporate and domestic takeover. The freesia candles disappeared, replaced by the scent of expensive diffusers emitting notes of walnut and oud, a scent that announced its own cost. She walked into Ardenvolt's lobby not as a newcomer, but as a queen returning to her throne room. She had been a consultant on a merger years ago, a familiar, orbiting satellite who saw a power vacuum and moved in with lethal precision. Power, I learned, smells like walnut. While she was redecorating my childhood home in shades of slate and gunmetal, I was trying to build something of my own. I had moved out, into a small rental apartment across the river with peeling paint on the windowsills and a radiator that hissed like a cornered snake. I was pouring everything I had, my own engineering degree, my inheritance from my mother, the endless hours, into a small startup that failed spectacularly. Humiliated and broke, I swallowed my pride and took a job at Ardenvolt. Not in management. I didn't want to be in their orbit. I took a night shift position on the clean energy R&D team, working in the sub-level labs. It was there, fueled by vending machine coffee and the quiet hum of the servers, that I had my breakthrough. I found a way to drastically increase the energy density of our lithium-ion cells by stabilizing the cathode with a unique cobalt graphene matrix. It was a genuine leap forward, a game changer for the company's next generation of products. I called it the Aurora Cell. I documented every step, every failure, every late-night success. I filed the initial patent application paperwork myself, listing my name and 2 other junior engineers from the night team as the inventors. We celebrated with cheap beer and pizza at 3 a.m. in the lab's break room. It was the proudest moment of my professional life. 2 months later, the official patent filing was registered. My reward was an act of surgical erasure. I discovered it by accident, searching the public patent database for a competitor's filing. I found ours instead. There it was, the Aurora Cell, and under inventors, my name was gone. So were the names of my colleagues. In their place was a single name, Dr. Alistair Finch, a high-priced consultant and a close friend of Lydia's, a man who had never once set foot in our lab. The world went quiet. I remember staring at the screen, the white light of the monitor making my eyes ache. It felt like a physical blow, a theft so profound, it was like having a part of my own mind stolen and sold. When I confronted my father in his study, the patent printout trembling in my hand, he wouldn't meet my eyes. He just polished his reading glasses with a silk cloth, his movements slow and deliberate. Lydia was there, of course, standing by the fireplace, a glass of Pinot Noir in her hand. She had been wooing the board for months with intimate dinner parties, charming them with her vision for aggressive growth and her predictions of a soaring stock price. The Aurora Cell was the centerpiece of that vision. "Rhea, let's not make a scene," my father said, finally looking up. His voice was weary. "Alistair Finch's name carries more weight with the investors. It's just a strategic decision. You're still part of the team. You'll be rewarded." "I don't want to be rewarded," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "I want credit for my work, my name, the truth." "The truth is," Lydia cut in, her voice smooth as the wine in her glass, "that a patent is a corporate asset, not a personal trophy. We did what was best for the company, what was best for this family." "You mean what was best for you," I shot back. My father stood up then, his face clouding over with that familiar pained expression. "Rhea, please, don't do this. Don't make things difficult. The family needs peace right now. We need to be stable." And there it was, the Quinn family's real prime directive. It wasn't truth. It was the appearance of truth. It was a carefully maintained image of stability, of a family that had weathered loss and emerged stronger, a family that didn't have messy, internal conflicts. My name on a piece of paper was a threat to that peace. My truth was an inconvenience. His plea for peace was a command for my silence. I walked out of that study, and something inside me broke, or perhaps was forged into something harder. I didn't resign. I didn't scream. I went back to my peeling paint apartment and I opened a new folder on my laptop. It was encrypted, triple backed up, and named after an obscure constellation. I began to build a ledger, not of money, but of facts, the inconvenient ones. I documented everything they chose to ignore: the date and exact time I submitted the initial patent draft, the email from corporate counsel confirming its receipt, the server logs showing who accessed the file and when the names were changed, the expense reports from Lydia's board dinners, the dates, the times, who signed, who approved, who benefited, every deviation from protocol, every whispered favor, every corner cut. I became the family archivist of the truths they wanted to bury. The final illusion of family harmony shattered about 6 months ago. It happened, as these things so often do, in the kitchen. I had come over for my father's birthday. A tense, obligatory affair. I was getting a glass of water when Lydia came in, her heels clicking softly on the slate tile. She stood beside me at the counter, her presence radiating a chilling, proprietary calm. "You're still angry about the patent, aren't you?" she said. It wasn't a question. "You think you can fight this? You think that little lawsuit over your grandmother's will is going to give you some kind of leverage?" I didn't answer. I just filled my glass. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You live in your little world of right and wrong, of what's fair, but out here, in the real world, none of that matters. What matters is who controls the narrative, who has the access, who makes the decisions." She gestured with her chin toward a hook by the back door, where a heavy brass ring hung, laden with keys. The keys to the house, the office, the company cars, the executive washrooms. Don't ever forget who holds the keys. Rhea. It was a threat, cloaked in condescending advice. It was meant to remind me of my powerlessness. I looked at the brass key ring, glinting under the recessed kitchen lighting. I saw each key, each jagged edge, each symbol of access and control. And in that moment, looking at the keys she held, I knew with absolute certainty what I had to do. She was right. It was about who held the keys. So I would forge my own. Ardenvolt Systems headquarters is a monument to calculated transparency. It stands in Braxton Ridge, a 20-story tower of steel and glass that reflects the perpetually overcast Halloway City sky. The company logo, a stylized letter A in a shade of pale, apologetic blue, is etched into the glass above the main entrance. It's a color meant to convey calm, trustworthiness, and environmental friendliness. To me, it's the color of a lie frozen in ice. From the outside, the building is a seamless, beautiful object. From the inside, if you know where to look, you can see all the cracks. My domain is on the 12th floor. The plaque on my office door reads, Rhea Quinn, Head of Supply Chain Data Integration. It's a deliberately unglamorous title, a bureaucratic mouthful that causes eyes to glaze over at corporate mixers. It's also the most powerful position in the company that doesn't come with a corner office. While Lydia and her executives operate in the realm of strategy and perception, I operate in the realm of raw, unvarnished fact. My team manages the central nervous system of Ardenvolt's global operations, the ERP system. Every raw material ordered, every component shipped from a vendor in Shenzhen, every finished battery that leaves our loading dock in Nevada, it all flows through our servers. My security clearance and admin privileges give me the digital equivalent of a master key. My ID card doesn't just open the door to my office, it opens the server cages in the sub-basement, the climate-controlled rooms where the company's memory is stored on humming racks of hard drives. Lydia gave me the keys to the house. She forgot I already had the keys to the city. This access was how I confirmed the theft of the Aurora cell. It wasn't just a matter of seeing Alistair Finch's name on the public filing. I went deeper. I went into the system's backend, into the change logs that are never deleted. Corporate IT systems, particularly those managing intellectual property and legal documents, are designed for accountability. They record every keystroke, every modification, every access. They are a silent, digital witness. And the witness told a damning story. The modification to the patent document, the one that deleted my name and the names of my team and inserted Finch's, was made at 2:13 a.m. West on a Saturday. The change was logged to the IP address of a computer in the legal department, on the 18th floor, but the user account that executed the change was not a lawyer's. It was a temporary admin account, one created at 2:05 and deleted at 2:20. An account designed to be a ghost. But ghosts leave footprints. I pulled the full data packet, the IP address, the MAC address of the machine, the exact timestamps, the original and modified versions of the document. I exported the raw log files, encrypted them with a 256-bit AES cipher, and uploaded them to a secure, air-gapped digital vault hosted on a server in Switzerland. It was the digital equivalent of bagging a murder weapon. But a single crime, however egregious, could be explained away. A procedural error, an overzealous subordinate. I needed to establish a pattern, so I kept digging. I started living a second life in the company's data streams. I found other things, small inconsistencies at first, then larger ones. I noticed that the PR and marketing department's budget had a recurring, vaguely labeled expenditure under specialized market research. It was a high five-figure sum paid out quarterly to a boutique consultancy in D.C. I ran the consultancy's name. It was a registered LLC, founded 2 years ago. The sole proprietor was a woman whose last name was Morrow. I did a little more digging. The week the first payment was made to that consultancy was the same week a new intern started in the marketing department, Joanna Morrow, Lydia's niece. The cost of Lydia's nepotism, laundered through the marketing budget and disguised as a business expense. I downloaded the invoices, the payment authorizations with Lydia's digital signature, and the HR onboarding file for her niece. More evidence for the vault. This was the beginning of what I called Project Quiet Ledger. It was my real work, conducted after hours, in the privacy of my locked apartment, on a laptop that never connected to Ardenvolt's network. It became an obsession. I wasn't just a data analyst anymore. I was a forensic accountant, a private investigator piecing together a conspiracy from its digital debris. I correlated email server metadata with security camera logs. Who was badging into the legal department late on that Saturday night? The camera footage was grainy, but the timestamps were perfect. It showed Lydia and Alistair Finch entering the elevator to the 18th floor at 1:58 a.m. and leaving at 2:23 a.m. The timing was too perfect to be a coincidence. I cross-referenced meeting schedules from the company's calendar server with digital signature logs on contracts. A pattern emerged of back-channel deals and handshake agreements that were later formalized with suspiciously convenient timing. Data alone isn't enough. Data can be challenged, dismissed as circumstantial. I needed to make my evidence unimpeachable. I found a service online, a firm of digital notaries that specialized in creating a verifiable, legally binding chain of custody for digital evidence. For a substantial fee, paid in cryptocurrency, I uploaded my encrypted files. They time-stamped each piece of evidence, hashing the data and recording it on a private blockchain, creating a permanent, tamper-proof record of what I had and when I had it. If this ever went to court, no one could claim I had fabricated or altered my findings. I had a third-party, cryptographically secure validation of every single file. The evidence was my shield. Now I needed a sword. I formed a corporation, a Delaware C Corp, for maximum anonymity. I called it Monarch Harbor Holdings. The name was a private joke, a reminder of the courthouse on Monarch Street, where this would all eventually end, to the SEC, to Ardenvolt, to the world. Monarch Harbor was just another name on a long list of institutional investors. It was a shell, an empty vessel, but it was a vessel I could fill with power. Ardenvolt, like many tech companies of its generation, had a history of high employee turnover, especially in its early days. Engineers, lab technicians, and project managers would join, receive stock options as part of their compensation, and leave a few years later. Many of them still held those shares, small, scattered blocks of stock, often forgotten, sitting dormant in old brokerage accounts. They were rounding errors on the company's cap table, too small to matter individually, but in aggregate, they represented a significant, disenfranchised voting bloc. Through a third-party broker, Monarch Harbor began to buy those shares. We offered a small premium over the market price, enough to be attractive, but not enough to raise suspicion. The pitch was simple. Cash out a small, illiquid asset you'd probably forgotten you had. Over the course of a year, Monarch Harbor quietly absorbed these fragments of ownership, 100 shares here, 500 there. We never crossed the 5% threshold that would require a public disclosure filing with the SEC. We stayed in the shadows, a patient predator accumulating power one forgotten share at a time. The small, persistent investor was becoming a silent, sleeping giant. Everything was in place. The meticulously documented evidence of the patent theft, the proof of financial misconduct and nepotism, the legally certified chain of custody, the growing arsenal of voting shares held by an anonymous entity under my control. I had built a perfect, intricate trap. All I needed was for the target to walk into it. I needed Lydia to make a mistake, not a small, procedural error hidden in the server logs, but a big one, a public one, something that would force the board of directors to act, to look past her polished presentations and rising stock price. I needed a moment of pure, unadulterated hubris, a moment where her arrogance overrode her strategic cunning. I knew it would come. People like Lydia, people who believe they are untouchable, always make that one fatal error. They come to believe their own press releases. So I waited. I filed the challenge to my grandmother's will, knowing it would infuriate her, knowing it would feel like a direct, personal attack on her authority within the family. I created a public stage, a drama she couldn't resist managing. I put myself in her path, a target she couldn't ignore. And this morning, on those cold granite steps, she gave me exactly what I was waiting for. In a single, visceral, and beautifully recorded moment of violence, she had provided the catalyst. She thought the slap was the end of an argument. She had no idea it was the beginning of my endgame. She had no idea that the real fight wasn't on the steps of the courthouse, but was about to begin on the 41st floor of her own glass tower. She was the one variable she never accounted for. She was the weapon I would use against herself. The courthouse incident was a tactical advantage, but it was not the plan. The plan was already in motion. A complex machine assembled in sterile silence, far from the noise of flashbulbs and shouting reporters. The lawsuit over my grandmother's will was the first layer of misdirection. It was perfect camouflage. The media, and more importantly, Lydia, fixated on it. They saw it as a family drama, a messy, emotional squabble over an old woman's estate. They framed me as the disgruntled, greedy heir. I allowed this narrative to flourish, while they were busy analyzing the optics of my public grief or lack thereof. My real lawyers, the ones who specialized in securities law, not probate, were finalizing their work. In the quiet of a downtown law office, my securities counsel, Alani, was preparing the Schedule 13D, the purchases made by Monarch Harbor Holdings, combined with the block of Ardenvolt stock I had inherited directly from my mother, had finally, deliberately, crossed the 5% beneficial ownership threshold. This filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission was a legal requirement. It was also a declaration. It announced my arrival as a significant stockholder, a player to be reckoned with, but we timed its filing to coincide with the media circus of the will. It would be filed electronically, and by the time Lydia's legal team processed its significance, it would be too late. The first move on the board had been made, obscured by the noise of a different game. While Monarch Harbor was acquiring shares, I was acquiring allies. This was not about emotion. It was about aligning interests. I had spent months analyzing the portfolios of Ardenvolt's other major institutional investors. I isolated 3 specific mid-cap funds, 2 based in Boston, 1 in Chicago, that were quietly dissatisfied. Their investment philosophy was built on long-term, sustainable growth through R&D. They invested in innovation, not image. And Lydia, in her drive for short-term stock performance, had been systematically slashing the R&D budget. She was starving the very innovation, the legacy of the Aurora cell, that the company was built on. She was trading future breakthroughs for a better quarterly report. I did not contact them myself. I engaged a third-party advisory firm, a discreet consultancy that specialized in shareholder activism. They approached the funds not with accusations, but with data. They presented charts showing the decline in R&D expenditure versus the rise in PR and consulting fees. They presented models of long-term value erosion. They didn't speak of theft or nepotism. They spoke of poor capital allocation and a failure of governance. The funds were receptive. They wanted profit, real profit, not the hollow glamour of a CEO on a magazine cover. Through our intermediaries, we drafted a proxy voting agreement. It was a simple document, a confidential alignment of our voting shares to be executed at the next annual meeting, or, as the key clause stipulated, at any special meeting called to address a significant corporate event, and buried in the legalese. My lawyers had inserted a specific, custom-drafted provision, a reversal clause. The agreement stated that the fund's voting support for current management was contingent on the board's adherence to the company's own code of conduct. Any material, verifiable breach of that code by an executive officer would immediately trigger this clause, freeing their shares to vote with Monarch Harbor on a resolution to remove that officer. It was a moral trigger, an ethical landmine, planted deep in the contractual soil. With the legal and financial levers in place, I added a layer of independent verification. I hired a nationally recognized forensic accounting firm. I did not give them my entire Project Quiet ledger. That was my work, my proprietary data. Instead, I gave them a breadcrumb trail. I anonymously directed them to the specific marketing budget codes and the corresponding invoices for the DC-based consultancy run by Lydia's relative. I gave them the date range for the Aurora Cell patent modification. I paid them a substantial retainer and asked them to perform a limited hypothetical audit of these specific anomalies, purely as a due diligence contingency for a potential investor. I wasn't hiring them to find the evidence. I was hiring them to put their unimpeachable, gold standard brand name on the evidence I had already found. They were my insurance policy against any claim that my data was biased or fabricated. Then, I set the internal trap. From a public library computer, using a privacy-focused email service, I sent an anonymous letter. It was addressed to Ardenvolt's general counsel and the 2 independent directors on the audit committee. The tone was not accusatory. It was the careful, concerned voice of a mid-level employee who loved the company and was troubled by discrepancies that might pose a reputational risk. I didn't mention Lydia by name. I simply cited specific sections of the Ardenvolt Code of Conduct. Section 4.1, Conflict of Interest. Section 7.2, Integrity of Intellectual Property. Section 5.3, Use of Corporate Assets. I then innocently asked if it was standard procedure for R&D records to be modified by non-technical personnel, or if it was normal for marketing contracts to be sole sourced to firms with personal connections to the executive team. It was a quiet, precise injection of poison. The general counsel would have no choice but to investigate. The independent directors, whose personal liability rests on their ability to prove they acted on such warnings, would be forced to react. The reaction came 4 days later. I saw it on the public calendar of the corporate secretary, a flicker of movement in the system I monitored daily. 2 of the independent directors, the ones I had targeted, had requested a special follow-up session with the general counsel. The secretary had duly noted the meeting in the corporate calendar, a special, non-public executive session. The date was set for this coming Thursday, 9:00 a.m. The trap was set. The bait was taken. The timeline was established. All my pieces were aligned for a Thursday confrontation, where I would strategically leak the forensic accounting report to the directors just hours before their meeting. I set my own clock, my own operational calendar, to peak on Wednesday night, in preparation for Lydia's 9:00 a.m. inquisition. And then came Monday. Today, the courthouse. That slap, that raw, public, unprofessional act of violence. As I sat in my car, the throb in my cheek already fading to a dull ache, I felt a cold, clear surge of adrenaline. Lydia, in her arrogance, had just handed me the one thing my meticulous plan lacked: a perfect, undeniable, and visceral catalyst. The proxy agreement's ethical breach clause was no longer a hypothetical landmine. She had just stepped on it with her full weight. The camera footage from that courthouse dome, which my probate lawyer was already requisitioning via a public records request, was not just evidence of assault. It was a gift of nature. It was the final, devastating piece of ammunition. The Thursday meeting was still on the books, but the slap gave me the power to control the narrative completely. It was the accelerant that would turn their polite executive session into a full-blown crisis. Lydia had set her own clock. She just didn't know it. The hours following the incident on the courthouse steps were not spent in anger or shock. They were spent on execution. There is a clean, cold clarity that follows a successful tactical maneuver, and I moved within that clarity. My strategy, originally scheduled to unfold over the next 3 days, was now compressed into a single, brutal afternoon. First, the video. Alani was already on it. Before I had even left the downtown area, she had filed a Freedom of Information Act request with the Halloway County court system for the unedited security footage from Camera Dome 7B, which covered the main stairwell. Her request was specific: a full, unedited digital copy, complete with a notarized certificate of authenticity from the court's IT administrator, attesting that the file had not been altered, clipped, or manipulated in any way. By 3 p.m., we had a court-sealed evidence bag containing a thumb drive. It was no longer a viral clip. It was a legal fact. Second, the injury. I did not go home. I drove to the emergency room at Halloway General. I checked in, citing a fall. The wait was long and smelled of antiseptic. A resident eventually saw me, a tired-looking young man who shone a penlight in my eyes. I was clear about my purpose. I don't need pain medication, I told him. I need this documented. I was assaulted. His demeanor shifted from clinical fatigue to focused attention. He took detailed photographs of the swelling and the distinct red imprint of fingers on my cheek. He noted the cut on the inside of my lip. He issued a formal medical report, a dry factual document detailing contusions consistent with blunt force trauma to the left zygomatic arch. It was a doctor's certificate of injury. Another sterile, unimpeachable fact. Third, the narrative. Back in Alani's office, we prepared the package. We didn't just use a still image from the video. We created a short, time-stamped clip. It began 2 seconds before my father spoke. You could hear his voice, clear as day in the camera's audio feed. Tell the truth. Then, you saw Lydia's hand grab my wrist. You saw the strike. You saw my head snap back. The entire sequence, from my father's moral instruction to Lydia's violent contradiction of it, lasted 4 seconds. It was a perfect, self-contained story of hypocrisy. This clip became the centerpiece of a meticulously assembled digital dossier. The file was labeled Post-Hearing Incident, Quinn v. Morrow Estate, Potential Governance Risk. There was no emotion in the accompanying memo, only the cold language of corporate liability. I addressed it to Ardenvolt's Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer, a man named Peterson, whom I knew to be a stickler for procedure. The memo highlighted the potential for significant reputational damage, the creation of a hostile work environment for a key employee, and the demonstration of poor impulse control by an interim executive in a public setting. Simultaneously, Alani's firm sent its own communication. It was a formal letter of notice, sent via courier to the General Counsel and copied to the entire Board of Directors. It did not mention the slap directly. Instead, it was a carefully worded warning regarding a potential breach of fiduciary duty. It stated that their client, Rhea Quinn, had been subjected to actions of coercion and intimidation by a senior executive, actions which they believed were intended to improperly influence the outcome of ongoing legal matters and suppress the disclosure of material information pertinent to corporate governance. It was a legal broadside, threatening litigation not against Lydia personally, but against the board itself for failing to control its executive. One package was an internal bomb, the other was an external one. Every document in both packages, the video file, the doctor's report, the memos, the legal notice, was digitally run through the same third-party timestamping service I had used for Project Quiet Ledger. Each file was given a cryptographic hash, a unique digital fingerprint, and recorded on a secure ledger. There would be no accusations of last-minute fabrication. My evidence was now armor-plated. A third, more concise package was prepared for our allies. I sent an encrypted email to my contact at the shareholder advisory firm. The subject was Material Event Regarding ARDN. Executive Conduct. The email contained the 4-second video clip and a 1-page summary. This summary didn't focus on ethics, it focused on risk. It included a brief market analysis chart, modeling the potential negative impact on Ardenvolt's stock price, ticker ARDN, should the footage leak to the financial press. The scenarios projected a 5-10% drop in share price within 48 hours due to executive instability and potential leadership crisis. I was not asking for their support. I was activating the self-interest that underpinned our agreement. The ethical breach clause in our proxy agreement was now officially triggered. The packages were sent at 5:00 p.m. The board members would see them in their inboxes as they finished their day. I waited until 10:30 p.m. From a disposable email address, I sent one final message. It was addressed to Lydia's personal email account, the one she used for non-corporate matters. There was no text in the body, just a single attachment. The subject line read, Stairwell footage. I watched the delivery receipt confirm it had landed in her inbox. Then I powered down the burner phone I was using as a hotspot and disconnected. The trap was laid and baited. At 11:17 p.m., my personal phone buzzed. It was a text from my father. Ria, I just got off the phone with Lydia. And legal. Does this all have to be so serious? Can't we talk about this as a family? The words were so predictable, so perfectly aligned with his lifelong policy of smoothing over inconvenient truths. The appeal to family was his last refuge. I typed back a single sentence. It's just the truth, Dad, like you said. I received no reply. Lydia, however, did reply, not to me, but with her actions. At 1:45 p.m., my contact at the shareholder firm sent me a text. He had a source who tracked the flight manifests of corporate jets out of Halloway's private airfield. A jet owned by Ardenvolt Systems had just filed a flight plan. Departure time, 6:30 a.m. Destination, Washington, D.C. Passenger, Lydia Morrow. She was running, not physically, but strategically. She was flying to her high-powered D.C. lawyers, the ones who specialized in crisis management and SEC investigations. She was preparing for a war of attrition, believing she could bury this under a mountain of legal paperwork and PR spin. But in her panic, she had overlooked one small, crucial detail on her calendar: the special executive session with the board of directors, the one scheduled for Thursday. The one that, in response to the afternoon's events, had just been moved up to tomorrow morning at 9:00 a.m. Lydia was flying to meet her lawyers, 300 miles away. At the exact moment she was supposed to be facing her board, she was abandoning the field. The 41st floor of the Ardenvolt Tower is a soundproof box designed to float above the city. The boardroom is a cavern of muted grays and polished steel, dominated by a single massive slab of dark mahogany that serves as a table. The glass walls looking out over Halloway are frosted to shoulder height, diffusing the gray morning light, preventing anyone from seeing out or in. It creates a sense of pressurized isolation. The only sound is the faint, sterile hum of the ventilation system and the nervous, rhythmic click, click, click of someone's pen at the far end of the table. The air is thick, acidic with the smell of bitter, overbrewed coffee from a silver urn on the sideboard. A digital clock on the wall, its red numerals stark, reads 8:59, then 9:00. The heavy door opens with a pneumatic hiss, breaking the tension. Lydia Morrow enters. She did not make her 6:30 a.m. flight to D.C. The emergency summons from the board's independent chairman, sent at 6:00 a.m., and overriding all other executive priorities, had seen to that. She is not in control, and it shows. She is wearing a pair of large black sunglasses, a ridiculous affectation for an indoor meeting, a shield that fools no one. Her face is pale, the makeup applied with a slightly heavier hand than usual, and around her neck, she wears a high-collared silk scarf, a vibrant splash of color, Hermes, probably, that looks less like an accessory and more like a bandage. It is artfully arranged to cover her throat, but I know it's there to hide the dark, mottled bruise on her wrist, the one my fingers left when I tore my arm from her grip on the steps. She thought she was the only one who could leave a mark. She does not walk to her customary seat at the head of the table. That chair is already occupied. Marcus Thorne, the board's lead independent director, sits there. He is a retired federal judge, a man with a spine of cold steel and a face that has seen everything. He nods curtly as Lydia takes a seat, not as a CEO, but as a subordinate. Halfway down the table, her general counsel, a harried man named Davies, sits beside her, his briefcase open, papers already fanned out in a defensive posture. My father is here, in his capacity as a board member and founder. He sits opposite me, staring intently at the blank legal pad in front of him, as if it holds the answers. He has not looked at me once. I am at the very end of the table, the seat reserved for observers, for non-essential personnel. I am here by formal invitation of the chairman. I am a witness. I am the evidence. Marcus Thorne taps his pen once on the table. The sound is like a gunshot. This extraordinary session of the board is now in session. The time is 9:02 a.m. We are here to address a matter of urgent governance and executive conduct which poses a material risk to the company. Before we begin the formal agenda, we will review a piece of evidence submitted to this board. He nods to an aide in the corner. Mr. Harris? The lights in the room dim, not all the way, but enough to turn the world to shadow. A large monitor at the end of the room, previously dark, flickers to life. No one speaks. The only sound is the low hum of the projector. The video begins. The image is sharp, clear. The high-definition feed from the courthouse security dome. It shows the wide granite steps. It shows me. It shows Lydia. And then, the audio track kicks in, picking up my father's voice, amplified by the camera's sensitive microphone. Tell the truth. The words echo in the silent, darkened boardroom, a hollow pronouncement of a morality that is about to be spectacularly violated. We all watch. We see Lydia's hand snake out, grabbing my wrist. We see her lean in. We see the strike, the full, open-handed, calculated swing. We see my head snap to the side. The crack of the impact is shockingly loud, a visceral, ugly sound that makes two board members physically flinch. The video freezes on that frame. My head turned, her hand still in the air, a perfect tableau of the crime. Lights, Thorne commands. The lights come back up, fluorescent and harsh. The silence in the room is heavy, suffocating. Lydia is rigid, her face ashen beneath the makeup. This is an outrage, she says, her voice strained, too high. She pulls the sunglasses from her face, her eyes wide and furious. That video is a fabrication. It's been doctored, cut together. This is part of her smear campaign. She gestures toward me, her hand trembling. She is trying to steal this company, and she will stop at nothing. The general counsel, Davies, clears his throat nervously. Mrs. Morrow, I must advise. It's a lie, she shouts. No, it is not, Marcus Thorne says, his voice flat. He does not raise it. He doesn't need to. He holds up a single sheet of paper. This is a notarized affidavit from the Halloway County Court Administrator, attached to a chain of custody report from their Technology Services Department. It attests, under penalty of perjury, that this footage is raw, unedited, and sourced directly from their secure servers. It is authenticated, admissible, and it is real. Lydia's mouth opens, then closes. A small, desperate sound escapes her throat. All eyes in the room turn to me. I have not moved. I have not spoken. I look at Lydia, my expression neutral. It doesn't need to be doctored, I say. My voice is quiet, but it carries across the polished wood. The truth is sharp enough. Lydia's eyes blaze with pure, unadulterated hatred, but before she can speak again, Thorne cuts her off. Thank you for that clarification, Ms. Quinn. We will now proceed. The first item on the agenda is a series of statements from our institutional partners. Mr. Volkov, from Apex Capital, you have the floor. A man in a severe black suit, representing the first of the 3 funds I had allied with, leans forward to his microphone. He reads from a prepared statement, his voice a monotone. Mr. Chairman, Apex Capital has reviewed the evidence of executive misconduct, which we find to be a clear and material violation of Section 2.1 of the Ardenvolt Code of Conduct. This act of public violence, combined with the clear reputational risk it creates, triggers the ethical breach clause in our proxy agreement. Accordingly, Apex Capital hereby withdraws its support for the interim chief executive officer, Lydia Morrow, and will vote its shares in favor of her immediate removal. He finishes and leans back. Lydia looks stunned. Mr. Chen, Thorne says. Wait, no. The user said no Chen. I must correct this. The user's prompt is absolute. Noi dong chuen kongkanyan vat now ten la Chen. Hai chong ten ko chu Chen. The story content has no character named Chen or with Chen in their name. I must change the name. Let me reread the outline. It doesn't give me names for the fund managers. I created Volkov. I will create another one. Mr. Davies, Thorne says, nodding to the man from the Chicago Fund. No, Davies is the general counsel. I need another name. I'll use Reinhardt. Mr. Reinhardt, Thorne says. A second man, older, with wire-rimmed glasses, leans forward. Reinhardt Group concurs. We find this conduct to be indefensible and a direct threat to shareholder value. We invoke the same clause. We withdraw our support for Mrs. Morrow and vote for removal. A third voice, a woman from the Boston Fund, speaks without waiting to be called on. As does Northlight Investments, we have lost all confidence in the interim CEO's judgment and fitness to serve. We vote for immediate removal. It is a public execution, 3 hammer blows, delivered in the cold, passionless language of finance. It is no longer about a family dispute. It is about a breach of contract. It is about the money. Lydia's face has gone from ashen to a deep, mottled purple. She is breathing in short, shallow gasps. She looks at the other board members, her allies, the ones she charmed with Pinot Noir and promises of growth. They refuse to meet her gaze. They are all studying their legal pads, their water glasses, their own fingernails. Marcus Thorne looks at the papers in front of him. The chair has received declarations from stockholders representing a combined 28% of outstanding shares, including the shares held by Monarch Harbor Holdings, withdrawing support. This constitutes a majority of the voting block. Therefore, the board will now vote on Resolution 41B, which was distributed this morning, a resolution to immediately revoke all executive authorities and terminate the employment of interim CEO Lydia Morrow for cause, effective immediately. He pauses, and to appoint Dr. Eris Thorne, no relation, current head of R&D, as acting chief executive officer, effective immediately, to stabilize operations. This is new. Eris Thorne, a brilliant, apolitical engineer. My God. They listened. They chose someone from the technical side, not the finance side. They chose to save the company, not just its stock price. We will do a roll call vote, Thorne says. Mr. Graham Quinn, you are first. My father looks up. His face is a mask of anguish. He is trapped. To vote for Lydia is to endorse the slap, to vote against his own mantra. To vote against her is to destroy his wife. He looks at me, his eyes pleading, "Don't make me do this." I just look back. I give him nothing. Mr. Quinn? Thorne's voice is impatient. My father's shoulders slump. He seems to shrink in his expensive suit. He looks down at the mahogany table, at his own reflection in the polished wood. "I," he whispers. The word is barely audible, but in the silent room, it lands like an anvil. The rest of the vote is a formality. One by one, her former allies abandon her. I. It is unanimous. Lydia makes a strangled sound. She pushes her chair back, the legs scraping violently against the floor. She stands, her entire body shaking. I do not look at her. I do not give her the satisfaction of seeing my reaction to her defeat. I am looking at my father. He has not moved since his vote. He is still staring at the table, his head bowed. Then, very slowly, as if against his will, his head sinks lower. He brings one hand up, not to his face, but to his chest, gripping his tie. It is a gesture of absolute, profound, and public defeat. The man who built his life on the appearance of truth has just been forced to participate in a real one, and it has broken him. The dismissal of Lydia Morrow does not clear the air in the boardroom. It creates a vacuum. The shock of her removal hangs in the silent, conditioned atmosphere. Her empty chair is a gaping wound at the table. The board members, having just amputated their own leadership, look stunned, uncertain of what comes next. Marcus Thorne does not allow the silence to fester. His voice, calm and authoritative, cuts through the tension. "That concludes the first matter of business," he says, as if he's just approved the minutes from a previous meeting. "The second, which is directly related, concerns the integrity of the company's intellectual property. Ms. Quinn, you have the floor." I don't stand. I remain seated at the end of the table. An aide silently places a high-speed data cable next to my laptop. I connect it. My screen is mirrored on the large monitor at the end of the room, the same monitor that, minutes ago, displayed Lydia's act of violence. I do not open with an accusation. I open with a title slide, a simple, clean design in Ardenvolt's corporate blue. It reads, "Project Quiet Ledger, an internal audit of the Aurora Cell patent filing." My voice, when I speak, is steady. It is the same voice I use when presenting supply chain logistics reports, factual, devoid of emotion, letting the data speak for itself. This is an audit I began 11 months ago, following the official registration of U.S. Patent Number 1111-387-40442, commonly known as the Aurora Cell. I begin. My initial inquiry was prompted by a discrepancy between the preliminary invention disclosure and the final filing, specifically, the removal of the 3 original inventors and their replacement with a single, external consultant. I click to the next slide. It's a split screen. On the left is a PDF of my initial disclosure, with my name and the names of my 2 night shift colleagues clearly listed. On the right is the final patent, with the name Dr. Alistair Finch in the inventor's field. The question was not just what happened, but how. I continue. Ardenvolt's legal and IP management systems are designed with multiple safeguards to prevent unauthorized alterations. To understand the how, I examined the system's own metadata. The next slide is a screenshot of a system log file. It's a wall of text and numbers, incomprehensible to the uninitiated. I use my cursor to highlight specific lines, turning them from black to red. This is the changelog for the patent document. It shows that on a Saturday, at 2:13 a.m., the document was accessed and modified. The modification, which took less than 2 minutes, consisted of deleting 3 names and adding 1. The change was logged from an IP address originating from within this building, on the 18th floor, the legal department. I can feel my father's eyes on me, but I do not look at him. I keep my focus on the screen, on the facts. The user account that made the change, tempadmin7, was created at 2:05 a.m. and deleted, along with its activity logs, at 2:20 a.m. It was a ghost account. However, it was created by a permanent user, the personal account of the then General Counsel. A murmur goes through the room. The current General Counsel, Davies, looks like he's about to be sick. But a ghost account is not enough, I say, clicking again. You still need to be in the building to use a legal department terminal. This is security camera footage from the main elevator bank, time-stamped at 1:58 a.m. on the same night. The grainy image of Lydia and Alistair Finch entering the elevator appears on the screen. It is undeniable. They went to the 18th floor and left the building at 2:23 a.m. The entire timeline, from creating the ghost account to deleting it, is contained within the window of their presence in the building. I then bring up the email chain. This was not a unilateral action by the legal department. They were directed to facilitate it. This is an email from Lydia to the former general counsel, sent the preceding Friday. It requests that he provide Dr. Me Finch with all necessary assistance to finalize some minor administrative adjustments to the filing over the weekend. It stresses the urgency and the need for discretion. One of the independent directors, a woman named Eleanor Vance, speaks for the first time. This is a conspiracy to commit fraud. I am not a lawyer, I reply calmly. I am a data analyst. I am simply presenting the data. I move to the next section. The motive. Why Alistair Finch? Finch was presented to the board and to investors as the genius behind the Aurora cell. His name was used to build confidence and secure a new round of financing. He was compensated for the use of his name, but that compensation was not transparent. The screen now shows a series of invoices and payment authorizations from the company's treasury. These payments were not made to Dr. Guy Finch directly. They were made to a Delaware-based LLC called Morrow Family Strategic Advisory. The reason given on the invoices is Specialized Family Consulting Services. This LLC is wholly owned by Lydia's brother. The payments correspond perfectly, on a quarterly basis, to the projected royalties from the Aurora cell. The company was essentially paying a kickback, through a family-owned shell corporation, for the theft of its own intellectual property. The air in the room is now ice cold. The board members are no longer just looking at a case of employee misconduct. They are looking at a clear-cut case of financial fraud that implicates them all in a failure of oversight. Finally, the signature, I say, bringing up the last piece of the core evidence. It's a digital copy of the final patent assignment document, the one that legally transferred the rights of the invention to Ardenvolt. It bears Alistair Finch's digital signature. Dr. Finch was in Singapore on the day this document was signed. We know this from his travel records, which Lydia herself approved as a corporate expense. He did not sign this document. His digital signature was applied using a delegated authority function from a terminal in Lydia's office. This delegation was not properly authorized or recorded, which under the e-Sign Act invalidates the signature. I turn off the monitor. The screen goes black. The presentation is over. I have compiled all of this data, the server logs, the camera footage, the emails, the financial records, and the analysis of the digital signature into a single, encrypted dossier, I state, looking now at Marcus Thorne, and at Dr. Eris Thorne, the newly appointed acting CEO. It has all been time-stamped and certified by a third-party digital notary to guarantee its integrity. I am now turning this complete dossier over to you, Mr. Chairman, and to the Audit Committee, for whatever action you deem appropriate. I slide a slim silver thumb drive across the polished table. It stops directly in front of Marcus Thorne. The silence that follows is absolute. The board has been presented with a case so complete, so ironclad, that there is no defense. They are not just witnesses to Lydia's downfall. They are participants in the institutional failure that allowed it to happen. Marcus Thorne picks up the thumb drive. He looks at Eris Thorne, who nods grimly. The board will take this evidence under advisement with the Audit Committee and external counsel, Marcus says, his voice heavy. However, one action can and must be taken immediately. He looks around the table. I move for an immediate vote to direct corporate counsel to file a certificate of correction with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, restoring the names of the original inventors, Rhea Quinn, Samuel Jones, and Maria Flores, to patent 11,387,442, with Ms. Quinn listed as the lead inventor and expunging the name of Alistair Finch. Seconded, Eleanor Vance says immediately. All in favor? A chorus of ayes fills the room, even my father, his voice a hoarse whisper. Votes in favor. The motion passes unanimously. A corporate secretary places a set of meeting minutes in front of me. It's a single page, detailing the resolution that was just passed. There is a line at the bottom for my signature, acknowledging the board's action. I pick up the pen before I sign. I look at Marcus Thorne. I have one condition. I will not be seeking any personal financial damages or backdated royalties for this. I require no compensation. My only demand is that the company issue a full public press release announcing the correction of the patent and a formal apology to Mr. Jones and Miss Flores for the erasure of their work. Thorne nods slowly. That seems more than fair. It will be done. I sign my name. The ink is black and final. As the meeting dissolves into a chaos of hushed, urgent conversations and calls to lawyers, I stand up, I gather my laptop and my notes. The press, I know, has been alerted to this emergency meeting. There is a small conference room down the hall where they are being held, waiting like vultures for a statement. They are waiting for me to emerge, to give them the triumphant quote, the soundbite of the victorious daughter who took down her wicked stepmother. But I don't turn toward that room. I turn the other way, toward a private, internal elevator used by the executive staff. I press the button. The doors slide open into an empty car. I step inside alone. As the doors close, sealing me in silence, I lean my head back against the cool steel wall. I feel a sudden, profound sense of lightness, the same feeling you get at the end of a very long day when you finally take off a pair of tight, uncomfortable shoes. The relief is not triumph. It is not victory. I haven't won anything. I've just finally, after so long, locked a door that should never have been opened. I step out of the private elevator, not into the main atrium, but onto the wind-whipped terrace on the ground floor. It is a wide, concrete space furnished with heavy modern benches and large empty stone planters. It is a place for employees to take calls, a place to be alone in public. The air is still cold. It is the same sharp, indifferent Holloway City air as yesterday, but the light is different. Yesterday, the sky was a low, oppressive sheet of damp gray. Today the clouds are high and broken. The sun is not out, but the world is brighter. He is standing there, by the edge of the terrace, looking out at the traffic. My father. He is alone. There is no PR team to manage his posture, no lawyer at his elbow to advise his silence. He is not wearing his usual polished topcoat. He is just in his suit jacket. His hands are shoved deep into his pockets. Then he pulls them out, as if he doesn't know what to do with them. They are bare. He looks smaller out here, exposed, just a man on a concrete ledge. He must have heard the heavy door thud shut behind me. He turns. His face is a ruin. It is not anger I see, or sadness. It is a profound, shattering confusion. The look of a man who followed all the rules only to find they were the wrong ones. He watches me walk toward him, his gaze fixed not on my face, but on my hands, as if expecting me to be carrying something. I stop a few feet away from him. The wind pulls at my hair, the same wind that was on the courthouse steps. He speaks first. His voice is a dry whisper, almost lost in the noise of the street. I told you to tell the truth, Ria. It is not an accusation. It is not a question. It is a statement of fact, a last, desperate attempt to claim the moral high ground, to insist that this outcome was what he intended all along. I look at him. I see the man who taught me to ride a bike and the man who signed off on my erasure. They are the same person. I did, I say. My voice is not a whisper. It is clear, steady, and cuts through the wind. I did exactly that. He flinches, as if my words were a physical blow, the one he never saw coming. He has no response. The script he has lived by, the one where truth was a flexible, curated narrative, has failed him. He looks down at his own hands. He holds them slightly open, as if checking for something. They are empty. He seems surprised by this, as if he expected to find a ring there, or a scepter, or the keys he once held. He clenches them, then lets them fall to his sides. A sudden commotion from the side of the building breaks the moment. A gray metal service door, one I know leads to the loading dock, clangs open. 2 uniformed security guards, not the familiar lobby staff, but external contractors in black blazers, emerge. Between them is Lydia. She is walking fast, her head high, her heels striking the pavement with furious, staccato clicks. She is not in handcuffs. She is simply being ejected, removed, a person who no longer has access. She is carrying her own handbag. As they hustle her toward a black sedan waiting at the curb, she stops, twisting away from the guard's hand on her elbow. Her head snaps around, her eyes scanning the terrace, and she finds me. For 1 second, I see it. It is not the calculated, cold anger from the boardroom. It is a fire, a black, bottomless well of pure, primal hatred. It is a promise. It is the purest truth I have ever seen on her face. Then, just as quickly, it is gone. The fire is extinguished. The mask of dead. Icy composure slams back down. The guard touches her arm again, and she becomes compliant. A woman late for an appointment. She gets into the car. The door shuts. The car merges into traffic and disappears. The press, alerted by the sight of Lydia's forced exit, surges around the corner of the building. They see me. They see my father. They swarm. A wall of shouting, microphones, and flashing cameras, blocking the path to the street. Ms. Quinn! Ms. Quinn! What happened in there? Lydia Morrow is out. What do you have to say? Was this about the assault? Was it about the patent? A young reporter shoves a microphone in my face, her eyes wide with the thrill of the chase. Rhea, you won. Do you have anything to say? I look past her, into the red light of the nearest camera. I wait for a fractional beat, a small space in the wall of noise. I say 4 words. The truth is recorded. It's not the answer they want. They want tears, or triumph, or a speech about justice. They want a narrative. I have given them a fact. The microphones hesitate, pulling back an inch. The reporters look at each other, confused, their questions dying. In the small, sudden silence, the wind gusts again, blowing my hair across my face. I don't brush it away. No one claps, no one cheers. There is no sense of victory. It isn't needed. By 2:00 p.m., the adrenaline has subsided, replaced by a cold, focused calm. I am in a smaller conference room on the 35th floor, a functional space with none of the grandeur of the main boardroom. The view of the city is the same, but the context is entirely different. This is not a courtroom. It is a workshop. Alani sits across from me. Between us on the table is a stack of documents, bound in blue. It is 2 inches thick. This is the architecture of the new Ardenvolt systems. It's all here, she says, her tone all business. The final tally is in Monarch Harbor Holdings, combined with the committed proxy shares from Apex, Reinhardt, and Northlight, now represents a voting bloc controlling 53.7% of the company. It's a slim majority, but it is a controlling interest. We have the votes. This is the final move, the one that began not with a slap, but with the quiet purchase of 100 forgotten shares a year ago. Lydia's removal was a necessary demolition. This is the construction. The bloc's first action, Alani continues, tapping the top document, is a formal proposal, submitted to the board, for a restructuring of its own governance committees. We are proposing a new slate of directors for the audit and compensation committees, all of them independent, all of them with backgrounds in forensic accounting and ethical governance. We are effectively seizing control of the company's financial and ethical oversight. She slides the first document toward me. It is a standstill agreement. By signing it, I, as the principal of Monarch Harbor, agree not to acquire any further shares or launch a hostile takeover for a period of 24 months. It is a peace treaty, an assurance to the market and the remaining board members that my intention is not to liquidate or dismember the company, but to reform it. This is your shield, Alani explains. It shows you're here to build, not burn. I take the pen. My hand is steady. There is no tremor, no hesitation. I sign my name, the ink flowing smoothly onto the heavy paper. The next document is a series of binding corporate resolutions to be passed by the new board majority. They are the terms of my victory, codified into corporate law. The first is a budgetary mandate. It locks in the R&D budget at no less than its current level for the next 24 months, with a guaranteed 5% increase year over year. It creates a firewall around the company's engine of innovation, ensuring it can never again be cannibalized for the sake of a short-term stock bump. This is for my mother. The second is a strict anti-nepotism clause. It explicitly prohibits the hiring of any immediate family members of executive-level staff or board members into any financial, auditing, or senior management role. The Morrow family strategic advisory loophole is permanently closed. The third is what Alani has started calling the Lydia Clause. It is a new amendment to the Executive Code of Conduct. It states that any executive officer or board member who engages in a verifiable act of physical violence or intimidation in a public or private capacity will be subject to immediate, permanent, and irrevocable dismissal for cause, forfeiting all severance and stock options. The company will no longer tolerate bullies. I sign each resolution, my signature a series of small, decisive hammer blows. There's one final matter, Alani says, looking up from her papers. The CEO position. The board is prepared to offer it to you. Aris Thorne has already indicated he would be happy to return to his R&D role and support you. The chair is yours, Ria. For a fleeting second, I see it. The corner office on the 41st floor. The power, the title, the final, absolute vindication. And I feel nothing. No, I say. That's not what I'm here for. Alani raises an eyebrow but doesn't look surprised. I've submitted a counter-proposal, I continue. I will not be CEO. I am proposing the creation of a new C-suite position, one that reports directly to the board, not to the CEO, the Chief Integrity Officer. I slide a single sheet of paper back to her. It is a job description I wrote myself. The CIO will have oversight of corporate ethics, intellectual property integrity, and internal auditing. They will have the authority to launch independent investigations and will be firewalled from internal corporate politics. It's the job I've been doing for the last year without pay, I say. It's time to make it official. Alani reads the description, and a slow smile spreads across her face. They'll approve it, she says. They have no choice. And you're right. It's a more powerful position than CEO. At precisely 4:05 p.m., two things happen. First, Ardenvolt's Corporate Communications Department, acting on the direct, non-negotiable order of the board's chairman, sends out a press release. It is distributed globally over the wire services. It announces the termination of Lydia Morrow and the appointment of Dr. Aris Thorne. But the main point of the release is the formal, public correction of the Aurora Cell patent. It names me, Samuel Jones, and Maria Flores as the rightful inventors. It contains a direct, unequivocal apology from the board to all three of us for the previous and deeply regrettable error in attribution. Second, an internal email, written by me but sent from the office of the new acting CEO, lands in the inbox of every single Ardenvolt employee, from the janitorial staff to the senior vice presidents. The subject is a new direction. The body is short. Team. Effective today, the culture of fear at Ardenvolt is over. The practice of management by intimidation is over. The expectation that you will remain silent in the face of misconduct is over. We will be a company that protects its innovators, not one that silences them. We will be a company that values truth over narrative. More details on the new corporate governance and integrity policies will follow. For now, know this: your work is valued, and your voice is safe. The work begins today. Dr. Aris Thorne, Acting CEO. I leave the conference room and walk down the quiet, carpeted hallway. I walk past the executive suites, the names on the doors, a gallery of people who stood by and did nothing. I stop when I reach her office, the corner one. The nameplate. Lydia Morrow has already been removed, leaving a faint rectangular outline on the wood. The lights inside are off. The frosted glass door is slightly ajar. I push it open. The room is dark, lit only by the gray afternoon light filtering through the massive windows. It is empty. Her personal effects are gone. The only thing that remains is the faint, cloying scent of her expensive walnut and oud perfume, a ghost of her presence. The desk, a massive piece of black marble, is completely bare, wiped clean, a blank slate. I walk over to it. From my pocket, I take a single sheet of plain white paper, folded in half. It is a piece of stationery from the boardroom. I place it in the exact center of the vast, empty desk. On it, I have written 3 words. Tell the truth. I do not sign my name. I turn and walk away, leaving the door open behind me. Evening is falling on the city. The sky is the color of a deep bruise, purple and slate gray, bleeding into a thin line of orange at the horizon. I am sitting on the steps outside the main entrance of the Ardenvolt Tower, not the side terrace, but the wide, formal steps leading down to the street. They are made of granite, cool and solid beneath my hands. They are the same cut, the same stone, the same unyielding texture as the steps of the Monarch Street Courthouse. A matched set, a closed loop. The noise of rush-hour traffic is a steady roaring river a few feet away. People hurry past, heads down, collars turned up against the evening chill, their faces illuminated in brief flashes by the headlights of passing cars. No one looks at me. I am just a woman sitting on the steps of an office building at the end of a long day. Anonymous. I run my fingers along the edge of the stone I'm sitting on. My nail catches on a small, jagged imperfection, a chip in the granite's polished surface. It's sharp, a tiny point of pain in the vast, smooth coldness. It's strange. The throbbing in my cheek is gone. The cut inside my lip has already begun to heal. The only thing that still truly hurts is something older, something deeper. The fine hairline fracture that runs through the foundation of my family, the one that finally splintered and broke apart today. That pain is a clean, cold ache, like this stone, permanent. My phone vibrates in my coat pocket, a low, insistent buzz against my leg. I pull it out. The screen is bright in the gathering dark. It's an automated system email from the Ardenvolt HR and legal portal. The subject line is an impersonal string of code. Action complete. Case file 774B. Patent authorship. The body of the email is even colder. This message is to confirm that the requested administrative action has been processed and completed. The authorial records for U.S. Patent 11,387,442 have been officially restored to their original state per Board Resolution 41B. The system now reflects Rhea Quinn as lead inventor. This ticket is now closed. That's it. No fanfare. No congratulations. Just a notification that a database entry has been corrected. A digital record has been reconciled with reality. A ticket is closed. It feels small and immense all at once. The entire war, the long, silent nights of research, the risk, the confrontation, all of it reduced to a single, sterile email. I take a deep breath. The cold air fills my lungs, sharp and clean. I do not look back at the 20-story glass tower looming behind me. I don't need to. It is no longer a monument to my erasure. It is just a building, a place where I have a new job to do. I stand up, my joints stiff from the cold. As I turn toward the street, I catch my reflection in the dark glass of the revolving doors. It is a fleeting, ghostly image. It is my face, pale in the twilight, but there is no blood on my lip. There is no shock in my eyes. The line of my mouth is not a smile, but it is not a grimace either. It is just a line, a position of rest, a state of quiet, resolute calm, the face of a woman who has closed a ticket. I pull my phone out one last time. I open a new text message. In the recipient field, I type my own number. It feels like a strange, intimate act. In the body of the message, I type 3 words. Keep the record. I press send. The message disappears, sent out into the world, only to return to me a second later. A promise made and received, a new rule to live by. Not his rule, mine. A yellow taxi, its rooftop light on, slows and pulls to the curb in front of me, as if summoned. The passenger side window hums down. The driver is a middle-aged man with a kind, tired face. Need a ride? He asks. I nod. Walking to the curb and pulling the back door open, I slide onto the worn vinyl seat. The car smells of air freshener and old coffee. It is the most normal, anonymous space I have been in all day. The driver looks at me in the rearview mirror. Where to? I look out the window, at the blur of streetlights and the dark shapes of buildings. I think of my small, quiet apartment with its peeling paint. I think of the cold, slate-gray house I grew up in. I think of the glass tower and the courthouse and all the spaces in between where this battle was fought. And I know, with absolute certainty, that I cannot go to any of them. Not tonight. Tonight is for a new direction. I meet the driver's eyes in the mirror. Anywhere but back, I say. He nods, as if this is the most common destination in the world. He puts the car in gear. The taxi pulls away from the curb, merging smoothly into the river of traffic, through the rear window. I watch the steps of the Ardenvolt building, identical to the ones at the courthouse, grow smaller and smaller, until they are just another part of the city, swallowed by the distance and the dark. The end. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and let's connect and share our thoughts. If you enjoyed this, I would be so grateful if you would subscribe to the channel and like this video. And for extra support, please consider hitting the hype button. It really helps this story get heard by more people.